Where was God on October 7th?
Where he always is.
Where is God always? What does that mean, Jen? I mean, I think no, I think that's a very beautiful answer to say where he always is. That's actually quite a beautiful answer. But I'm sure that a lot of people are struggling. A lot of people are struggling with where is God and how to deal with it. There was a woman here a few days ago. She tells me that her family member is an atheist. Because where was your God when all these horrible things happened? And it's a very, very heavy question. Now, what's interesting about atheism is that you can't get angry with something that you don't believe in. So when you find that atheists get all emotional about the Holocaust and not God having let them down, you realize that that's actually a declaration of pained faith. Pained faith. How could he have done that to us? It's not that I don't believe in God. It's that I'm angry with God, which is another degree in the relationship. Then, of course, there's the agnostic that says, I'm not getting emotional about it because I don't actually believe that there is even a God in the first place, right? So what I'd like to point out to you is in this week's Torah portion, this amazing, amazing conversation between Moses and God on this topic of October 7th. So let's go to here. I'm going to go straight to it. We're a little short on time here today. It's on page 335. So this happens right after. This happens right at the burning bush. Right? Moses at the burning bush is getting his job interview. Now it's interesting. Fran Marx is saying that if we knew why God did these things, we would lose compassion. Okay, true. But where are you? Why? How do you allow this to happen? The question thunders. The question thunders. It's not a new question. Let's see how Moses dealt with this question. Remember, the Jewish people were suffering. Oh, Alex is with us. Alex Weinberg. Alex Weinberg, God's from your dad. So the question is not a new question since October 7th. It's not a new question since the Holocaust. Remember what was going on in Egypt. The Jewish people were suffering very similar to October 7th, but the difference being that then we had no army. Then there was no Air Force, then there was no Navy, then there was no Golani Brigade, and Givati and Egoz and Yahalom and all the other units. Pharaoh would bathe in the blood of Jewish babies. 60 babies slaughtered each morning, 60 babies slaughtered each evening, so that he could bathe to cure his skin disease. This is what we're talking about. It's a horrific, horrific existence. Pharaoh, at the very beginning of this week's Torah portion, didn't, he was told by his astrologers rightfully that the Redeemer of Israel was being born, a male was being born, and that his Achilles heel was water, also rightfully foresworn. Because again, Moses is foreseen. Thank you. I thought there was something wrong there. Remember, Moses' downfall was with the hitting of the rock, where he didn't speak to the rock and the water came out. That's why he was denied access into the promised land. So truthfully, they envisioned the Achilles heel of Moses being with water. That's why Pharaoh decreed that all the baby boys born to the Jews should be flung into the water and murdered upon birth. This is an unthinkable, difficult existence. At one point, Moses confronts Pharaoh and he tells him to let my people go so that they may serve me, says God. So Pharaoh says, sorry, you guys have way too much free time in your hands, and I'm going to increase the quotas of construction every day. And not only that, but I'm also going to deny you the building materials. You have to find them yourselves. And when the Jews were not able to finish the quotas every day, the Egyptians would force them to put their own children in the walls. So the destruction was a holocaust of unprecedented cruelty. And it was within this context that we read the next piece in the Torah here, where Moses is told by God that he wants him to go and let my people go. Confront Pharaoh. It took 7 days, this conversation between God and Moses. And Moses really wasn't very happy about it. Let's take a look on page 333. Is that what I said? No, I said 335, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to go a little bit back just to get a little context. Let's go to 333. Yeah, 333. So I'm not going to get into all the beautiful details of the burning bush. I'm just going to start 333. Let's say, let's go to the top of the page. An angel of God appeared to him in the heart of blazing fire from the midst of a thorn bush. As Moses gazed, he saw that the bush was on fire, but the bush was not being consumed. I'm just reading the boldface. Moses said, "Let me turn away and go over there to behold this remarkable sight. Why doesn't the bush burn?" When God saw that he turned aside to look, he called him from the midst of the bush, saying, "Moses, Moses." He replied, "Hineni, here I am." God said, "Come on nearer, remove your shoes from your feet, for the place in which you are standing is holy ground." After Moses did this, God said, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." Moses hid his face since he was afraid to look at God. God said, "I've indeed seen the affliction of my people in Egypt. I've heard their outcry caused by the taskmasters, for I'm aware of their pains." That's an interesting revelation from God. He says, "I'm aware." Okay, that's good. "I've come down to rescue them from the hands of the Egyptians and to take them up from the land to a good and ample land, to a land flowing with milk and honey. The region of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites." Notice, no Palestinians. And now, the outcry of the Israelites. The outcry of the Israelites has indeed reached me, and I've also seen the oppression to which the Egyptians are subjecting them. Therefore, now go. I will send you to Pharaoh. You will take my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. Moses now demurs. He says to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and take the Israelites out of Egypt?" God replied, "For I will be with you. So don't worry about your status, for I will be with you. And you will be speaking in my authority, not your own. You have seen that the bush performs my mission and is not consumed. This is your sign that you too will not be harmed in the mission that I've sent you on. As for your second question, the people are indeed worthy of a miracle. For when you take the people out of Egypt, you will be doing so in order that they all serve God by receiving the Torah on this mountain." So in other words, when Moses asked, why the Jews were worthy, God responds, they're worthy not because of what they've already done, but because of what they're going to do. Interesting, right? "It is therefore worth it for me to perform miracles on their behalf, even if they do not deserve the miracles yet." Page 335, Moses said to God, "I'm going to come to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your forefathers has sent me to you. When they hear this, they will ask me," and this is what I wanted to learn with you today, "they will ask me, what is his name?" Let's stop for a moment. What do you mean, what is his name? Let's keep on reading the actual verse. God said to Moses, 14, "I will be just as I will be." God then said, "You will say to the Israelites, I will be sent me to you." God further said to Moses, "So must you say to the Israelites, God, the God of your forefathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has sent me to you. Is my name at all times to be concealed? This is how I am to be recalled for all generations." Whoa, that was heavy. So Moses said, "Okay, fine. All right," he says, "I'll take them out of Egypt. But they're going to want to know what your name is. What am I going to tell them? What is this?" He needed a business card.
Well, the Egyptians, they're used to all the gods having names.
Right,
So
that's true.
They needed to.
They're like, which
say,
God? They needed the
who-
almanac,
who.
that book of diseases. There's a book of diseases. There's probably a book of gods. So we're like, okay, we gotta look this guy up. We gotta find him in
Which
there.
one is it?
What's his entry? What's his consumer reviews on Amazon? But there's obviously got to be a little bit more to that. That's one way to interpret it. But when we realize that Moses, okay, should have given them the answer. Moses should have given them the answer. What do you mean? What is his name? If I send you on a mission, right, and you say, well, people are going to ask me your name, just say my name. Why didn't Moses just say the name? He'd been talking to God for a while already.
Maybe he didn't know his name at that point.
Didn't he already tell him his name? Didn't he already identify himself at the beginning of the burning bush?
Well, he says, I am your Lord, etc. I am the God of your father, God of Abraham.
So he identifies himself, but he doesn't technically say his name, right?
Right.
Okay, he didn't identify himself with a business card, right?
Right.
So he's like, by the way, I didn't catch your name.
Yeah.
What was your name again?
Oh, yeah.
That's what it looks like, right?
Right.
So there's got to be more to this. Chassidus explains to us that what was going on over here is something so beautiful, so meaningful, and so deep, and so painful. We know that God has different names, and that the different names of God represent the different attributes of God. For example, we've learned together here that there's a name of God called Elohim. There's a name of God called Havaya, the Yud, Hey, and the Vav and the Hey, right? We've learned that what is the meaning of these different names. Elohim is the same numerical value as the word nature in Hebrew, Hateva, nature. When God chooses to submit himself to the laws of nature that he created, when God chooses to hide himself behind the patterns of nature, the repetitive, predictable patterns of nature, that is Elohim at play. The name Havaya is made up of the word Haya, Hoveh, Yihiyeh, past, present, and future as one. That name of God represents God the way he's timeless and not limited to the laws of nature. So when a miracle is going on, it's Havaya. When nature is at play, it's Elohim. And so with the other names of God, right? So God has multiple different names representing his different attributes, his character, and the modality in which he chooses to operate at that time. Which is why you'll find in the Torah that when God creates the world, it says, Bereshis bara Elohim et hashamayim et haaretz. In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth, because God created the rules of nature, which he set as he set them in motion, hiding himself. When there's a miracle going on, you'll see the name Havaya. Moses is asking a very, very deep question. He's saying, because seemingly, who cares what the name of God is? Just get us out of here. The question of the Jewish people is, what modality? Okay, we believe in God. We're not worried that this is the God of, we're not worried that this is an inferior God, that this is a submissive God. We're not worried that this is a weak God, right? Like the pagan culture that they were living in. They were like, okay, granted, we're talking about the God of Joseph. They remember Joseph. Joseph was the ruler of Egypt. They remember the story. It was just a couple generations before these guys, like maybe 100 and something years, 120 years was when Joseph died. Last week's Torah portion, before this week's Torah portion, right? So they'd been languishing in Egyptian suffering for 86 years since the last of the 12 tribes of Israel died. His name was Levi. Since Levi died until this story, 86 years have passed. It's not a long time. It's living memory. So they remember Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. They remember the miracles. Okay, that's the God. Fantastic. What's his name? What they were asking is, what's his name? Is what's his modality? What's he thinking in order to allow us to suffer this much? What's the plan? They weren't looking for a business card. They weren't looking for a meet and greet. They were they were asking a very pained question. How could you have allowed this to happen? That's the meaning.
The Holocaust.
The Holocaust.
Same question.
Exactly. What I'm trying to show you is that this is not a new question.
Mm-hmm.
And what's even more validating, Harvey, is that Moses says, I'm not going to know what to tell them. God, you're on your own. I am not your defense attorney. Because I don't know what to tell them. They come to me crying out, where was God on October 7th? Where was God when this happened, when the other thing happened? When my child got sick, when I got divorced, when I lost my job? Where was God? Yeah, there was a smaller problem, smaller. And Moses says, I don't know what to tell them. Because I have the same question. And now we appreciate the words here on page 335. We appreciate that Moses said to God, I am going to come to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers, of your forefathers has sent me to you. Oh, this is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Joseph. Fantastic. We know this guy good and well. But where the heck was he for the past 86 years? They will ask me, what is his name? And the commentary explains, meaning, what kind of God is it that allows the children of the forefathers, whom he loved so dearly, to suffer in such a terrible exile for so long? Why does he remember us only now that we have suffered so much and thousands upon thousands of our children have been slaughtered? When they ask me this, what should I tell them? What's the answer? Now, the answer, friends, is even more mysterious than the question. And we've been grappling with this answer for thousands of years. I have a proposal which I'm going to share with you, but let's try to figure it out ourselves. So what does Hashem answer? Let's take a look. On verse 14, God said to Moses, tell them I will be that what I will be. I will be just as I will be. Yeah, Asher. Yeah. I mean, that's a weird name. That's like a future tense. It's not a name. I will be as I will be. Tell them. And God adds, it says, tell them, I am the God of their forefathers, who has sent me, Moses, to you. This is my name forever, and this is my remembrance for generation to generation. So what's the answer? Rashi explains. So when you look in Rashi's commentary, it says like this: I will be as I will be. Imam I will be with them in this distress. Imam as I will be with them in the suffering of future kingdoms. So Moses said to God, Master of the universe, why do I really need to mention to them future suffering now? I don't know if this is the right time to tell them about the future suffering. It's going to get worse. Right? Maybe that's not a good idea. It's enough for them to suffer now. Amar Laisi, he said, fine, you're right. Therefore, you should tell them, just I will be, sent me to you. It's such an enigma. What is he saying? Hashem is, first of all, answering empathy. That's the first of all he's saying. I'm with you in the suffering. In other words, don't think that you're alone in the suffering. I too am suffering in this. That's the first thing that Rashi tells us. I will be with you in this suffering as I will be with you in future sufferings. That's the novelty of Rashi. So the first thing we realize is that God didn't just abandon us to the tragedy or the catastrophe, but that God is suffering with us. He's our Father. And how painful it is for a father to see the suffering happening to his children. He's not just present with us in the suffering, he's actively suffering together with us. And now when he says this word, this is my name forever, the word forever is actually missing a letter. Zeshmi le'olam. This is my name forever. One second. This is my name forever. The word forever is normally spelled le'olam, lamed ayin, vav, lamed mem. It's missing the vav. The letter vav is missing. It's a silent letter, but it's missing. What's the significance of it? The significance is concealment. Is that I'm concealed. I'm hiding. I know that it looks like I'm not there. That's because I'm hiding. I'm just hiding right behind the veil. I'm right there with you. My understanding, now that's the end. That's the end of the section. Let's see what the commentary here tells us. As we read the verse 14, God said to Moses, tell them that I was, and I will continue to be with them in this exile, just as I will be with them in their later exiles. I do not ignore them during the exiles, but in fact, I feel their suffering and suffer along with them. Moses said, it is enough that they have to suffer this present exile. Why should I mention future exiles? God then said, this is exactly what I meant. Although I'm telling you that I will suffer with them in the future exiles, you must say to the Israelites only that the God who says I will be with them in this exile sent me to you. So by the way, the promise of anti-Semitism is right here again, right? God says this, and it's going to get better. It's going to get worse before it gets better, right? But so we see anti-Semitism once again being predicted. God further says to Moses, and if they ask if God feels us suffering, why does he allow it to continue? Now we understand the question. So must you say to the Israelites, God of mercy, the God of your forefathers, the God of Abraham, my God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. The exile and all its suffering was in fact an act of mercy. The fact that this was not apparent was simply because my attribute of mercy, although operative, is hidden in exile and indeed in this world in general. Therefore, though God, indicating my attribute of your mercy is my proper name at all times, its pronunciation is to be concealed. We don't pronounce the name Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. We're not allowed to pronounce it because it's concealed from the general populace until the final redemption. Nonetheless, even now it is possible to call forth my mercy from its concealment, but not directly, by pronouncing the mercy name as it is written. Instead, this is how I am to be recalled for all generations until the final redemption. They should substitute the name Aleph Daled Nun Yud for my proper name. So we say Yud Kei Vav Kei as Ado, right? They can elicit my mercy by pronouncing the mercy name as if it were the name of lordship, acknowledging that I govern the world and I have my own, sometimes inscrutable lessons for doing so in the way I choose. This is deep stuff. It's very, 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 very deep stuff. Let me just try to give a coherent explanation to what's going on. So I think we can all relate to the question. Where was God on October 7th in the Holocaust and all the tragedies? Moses is asking this question on behalf of the Jewish people, and he says, God, you're on your own over here. I am not explaining this one for you, right? What's the answer? The answer, my understanding is, first of all, is empathy. God is saying, don't think that I'm not suffering together with you. I am. Second of all, Ehyeh is future tense. My understanding of the future tense based on V'yadaita Moskova is that God is saying, now you don't understand, but later you will. In the future, you'll get it. In hindsight is 20/20 vision. Now, we've learned this idea in amazing different angles. For example, we learned that when God created the universe, God's infinite light was everywhere. The infinite light of God, the Ein Sof. And we learned that there had to be something called the Tzimtzum, which was the contraction of God's light, which allowed a little sliver of light, a limitation to be formed in which the physical world could be created. So first there needed to be darkness before there could be light. If not for the prior darkness, we would never have been able to exist as limited, finite beings. We would all still be in God's infinity. That became the template of existence, where night must precede day, where struggle must precede success, where pain of childbirth must precede the joy of the nachas of children, that the nature of the universe is such that pain must precede pleasure. My understanding of this is that God is saying, look, hold on tight. Everything will be good in the end. If it's not good, it means that it's not the end. I understand that you're going through difficult times, but why so difficult? And God is saying, I'm crying with you. And it's really, really difficult. And we're so unhappy about this model. Moses is still so unhappy. Later on in the Torah, he cries out. Just take a look at what Moses replies after the burning bush. He comes back to God. Take a look at page 347. Page 347, after God explains this, right? After Moses, you think he's now enlightened, right? He's got it. He understands why bad things happen to good people, because it's all part of the plan. Good things will come out of this. It's like the child being born from childbirth, right? Remember the word in Hebrew for crisis? Crisis is mashber, which is the same word as a as a birthing stool. Because the birthing stool, you can look at it as a temporary pain, or you can look at it as leading to birth, to life. Remember when Rabbi Akiva saw the ruins of the temple? The other rabbis cried. You remember the story in the end of Gemara Makkas? Rabbi Akiva laughed. Why did he laugh? He says, because I don't see the momentary, the temporary destruction. I see the subsequent rebuilding. Do you see short-sighted, superficial, or do you see long-term, deep, right? Now, that's a difficult answer to swallow. It's a difficult answer to swallow. Remember, after every tragedy in Jewish history came a great blessing. Right? After the destruction, after the slavery in Egypt, came the giving of the Torah Mount Sinai. After the destruction of our first temple, came the writing of the Mishnah. After the destruction of our second temple, came the publication of the Gemara, the oral Torah. After the suffering of the Middle Ages, of the Cossacks, came the birth of the Kabbalists. After the Holocaust, the state of Israel. Right? Think about it. It's an amazing thing. It's like a slingshot. Back, forward, right? Ready, aim, and fire, right? So it's an enigma of existence. But Moses still, on page 347, he comes back to God and he says, Moses returned to God and he said, oh God, verse 22, why have you mistreated this people? Things have gotten so bad that the Egyptians are immuring the Israelites' children in the walls of the buildings when they do not meet their daily quota of bricks. And why have you sent me? For ever since I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he made things worse for this people. And still you have not delivered your people. So that's Moses' complaint. He's not making peace with God's answer, obviously, right? Let's take a look at what God responds. God says to Moses, I'm just going to read the boldface now. Now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. Again, he says in future tense. It's all part of a plan. That because of my strong hand, he will send me forth, and indeed he will forcibly drive them out of this land. You know, do you remember when Jacob finds out that Joseph is alive? It says, his heart just was in shock. He couldn't accept it. When did he accept? When did he make peace with the fact that Joseph was alive?
Saw the wagon.
When he saw the wagons. Did I speak about this last week?
Yeah.
Why the wagons? The wagons because they're modes of transportation. Wagons are transporting vehicles from A to B. When he realized, oh, there must be a purpose beyond the superficial current tragedy crisis. There's a greater purpose. There's an ultimate purpose. That's when he made peace. And this is my understanding of of God's answer to Moses' profound question, the thundering question throughout the ages. Where was God on October 7th? You know, it hurts like hell. You got to hold on tight. And you got to pray for Tov Anira Vanigla, obvious goodness that is revealed, obvious and apparent, that Hashem should blow the cover of the darkness of night, reveal the light that shines within. And this is why we have been crying. We've been calling out. We want Mashiach now. We say, God, enough is enough already. We've suffered so much. We're like Moses after being enlightened. After the burning bush, he's like, God, I'm sorry. I can't accept this. Right? And God doubles down. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. You'll see. I'm going to take you out of Egypt. Next verse, which is the next portion. I'll redeem you. I'll save you. I'll bring you and everything else. Moses is like, listen, it's too much. You're squeezing us too hard. I know oil is going to come out of this olive. But you're pulverizing the olive. You've made olive tapenade. What's it called? Tapenade? Tapenade. There's nothing left. It's mush. We're dead. We're finished. And this is the thundering question which we carry with us. I'm not sure if you're accepting of the answer. I don't know if you have to. But certainly we have what to think about. What do you say?
Well, I think it's in one sense heartening to know that out of darkness comes the light, and to look at historically what's happened. And But when you're in the middle of the pain, it's hard.
It's
Well,
like,
but if you
when you're-
consider what caused the darkness,
what did?
which is the people strayed, the people sinned.
Did they sin? In
Isn't
Egypt.
Isn't that the wake-up call? Why is there a wake-up call?
I don't know. God told Abraham that they're going to suffer in Egypt. I don't know if that was directly because of their sins. I'm not sure it was because of their sins in Egypt. There's no real mention of sins in Egypt.
Don't you think it was comforting for the people when Hashem said, "You can tell him I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob," because that's history to them.
It's like
And they saw the
great-grandparents.
miracles. They saw the miracles. It's like our saying, there was a Holocaust, but now there's Israel. So this is the God who can do miracles.
It's like
Trust me. Basically, trust me.
Yeah.
Because this is the same God.
Yeah, it's like God who says, I'm the God of the 6-day war. We're like, oh,
Right.
we remember that.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So you're saying that each of these wake-up calls is not necessarily because the people have sinned.
Yeah.
It's-
At least the one in Egypt. At least the one in Egypt. Egypt had other reasons that it was preordained that they were going to suffer in Egypt.
True.
The question is, the other times of history where we suffer, why us? Why this place? That would be brought upon by sin. But again, that's a bigger topic as well. At least for today, if we could focus on this one point, on why God allows suffering to continue for his own children. He says, I'm there with you. I'm not only there, I'm suffering, I'm crying with you. And the reason is because later on, something great is going to happen. It's like somebody above a root canal. Testing your resolve, yeah. But how far can you?
Just positivity, regardless of.
Yeah, but think about it. A child, I'm holding my daughter in the middle of her getting a shot. And she looks at me, she's like, Tati, how could you do this to me? How could you allow, you're supposed to be protecting me? How could you allow this person in the white coat to stab me with a needle? Right? And I got to just hold her tight and say, I love you, you got to trust me. Because out of this comes good. Right? Such is the nature of the universe. And I think that's the message that we have to incorporate within ourselves. We got to think about this. And this is not a 1-2 answer. It's something you gotta meditate on and think about. All right, folks. Thank you all. Have a good day.